Every year, hundreds of thousands of people attend comic book conventions around the world. People design their own elaborate costumes and show them off to others, all the while acting like their chosen character. But the question is why? Why would thousands act this way? Why would people invest so much time, money, and love into comics?
My name is Jeff Watkins. I'm the proud owner of Cloud City Comics and Toys. I was 9 years old when I got into comic books. I mean, in my personal life, I just needed to believe in superheroes. And something about them, I was just really drawn in. And there was no question about it that I would adore this stuff until my dying day.
My name is Keith Ward, and I teach a comic book class at East Syracuse Minoa High School. And it's actually the first comic book class in the country that we know of to offer English 12 high school credit. It's kind of great, actually, now that I think of it, that 20% of my salary is about teaching Superman.
Here we go. These are books.
Joe Mussolino has one of the most extensive comic book collections in the northeastern United States.
All these bins are filled with books. So for you Hulk fans, he's my favorite. This took me like 6 months to do, but...
Wow, that's nice.
Yeah.
He has shelves of graphic novels and boxes full of comics.
What we do have is an original Spider-Man #1, his first presentation. We keep that under lock and key. We don't want to keep it here, fires, things of the sort happening. And then if you go back here, the Spider Room.
What is seen here is only a fraction of his collection.
Besides Christmas decorations, we have, I'd say there's about 15,000 other comic books in here.
But where did it all begin?
Faster than a speeding bullet. More powerful than a locomotive. Able to leap tall buildings at a single bound. Look, up in the sky, it's a bird.
It's a plane.
It's Superman. Yes, it's Superman.
Superman first showed up in 1938. And comic books have a diverse history of being popular amongst young people. But Superman was the first superhero to really catch on.
Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster created Superman in the 1930s as an attempt to provide hope to the people. The Great Depression and World War II were dark periods in America, and to see a super being stand up for the morals that society had abandoned, that sparked hope.
He's meek and mild-mannered and polite and kind and inquisitive during the day. But when needs be, he's, just with he can go from Clark Kent to Superman, like that.
Superman stood for the values of America during World War II. However, one superhero embodies patriotism as a whole, Captain America.
Nothing to it. You sell a few bonds, bonds buy bullets, bullets kill Nazis. Bing, bang, boom. You're an American hero.
He was a propaganda tool. He did sell war bonds. I think he helped make people enlist. But as far as a comic character, but I think he was definitely, without question, more of a tool for World War II.
Strong and brave, here to save the American way.
Not all of us can storm a beach or drive a tank, but there's still a way all of us can fight.
While kids were reading Captain America, it was the teenagers and adults who caught on to his message.
Series E defense bonds. Each one you buy is a bullet in the barrel of your best guy's gun.
I think if you look at a lot of the data that's been generated in comic books success, it typically comes that when the United States is in the most trouble, comic book sales tend to increase.
In World War II alone, Captain America sold hundreds of thousands of issues, all spreading his idea of patriotism.
As DC had Superman and Batman selling war bonds on the cover of theirs, they came up with an entire character to do that. I think it was brilliant, and it worked, and I think it's fantastic that it did work.
While Captain America was tackling the issues of the 1940s, decades later, a whole new set of problems arose.
The Green Lantern Green Arrow series was special to me as a kid. I grew up in the 60s. It with the political upheaval and everything that was going on, the war and everything, these two guys came along and they decided to take a book that was actually dying, Green Lantern, and buddy him up with his friend Green Arrow. One was the traditional cop, that would be Green Lantern, and Green Arrow was basically a hippie. And what they did was they went through and they picked every book or every 2 issues would take a theme, something that was going on that day. They did a lot on civil rights, they did it on overpopulation, they actually did an amazing 2-issue spread on heroin addiction and drug addiction, where they actually had Green Lantern's ward or sidekick, like his Robin, was a heroin addict. And it was mind-blowing, and I don't know if it was for children even, because when you look back on them now, it would be a good lesson for adults just to see what's going on. It was done very raw.
Green Lantern comics focus a lot on civil rights for African Americans, which was crucial for the time period. In fact, they had one of the most controversial comic book pages of all time. This page is a conversation between an old African American man and Green Lantern, asking him, why do you always fight for the blue skins, orange skins, and purple skins, but never the black skins?
Whether it be civil rights, John Stewart was the replacement Green Lantern, for example. He was the first black African-American superhero, so they made him a Green Lantern.
There are many Green Lanterns, but in June of 2012, DC Comics announced that one, Alan Scott, is a gay man, proving Green Lantern comics still fight for the issues of today. But Green Lantern wasn't the only comic book fighting for civil rights.
African-American culture begins to take off and really starts to solidify around equal rights, and you see the X-Men are created.
The X-Men to me was all about the civil rights movement. Here you have these people who are just a bit different, maybe they look different, they act different, and then they're ostracized from society simply because of the small difference that they have.
We must know who they are, and above all, what they can do.
We're not what you think.
Even the Magneto Professor X dynamic is reflective of Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr. and their dynamic.
The 2 leaders of the X-Men comics, Professor X and Magneto, were based off Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X. Their methods and even the way they speak is incredibly similar.
Listen to me very carefully, my friend. Killing will not bring you peace. Peace was never an option.
I've always felt like Stan Lee and Marvel put this in front of us to be like, how would you act if a guy had like wings or had shot lasers out of his eyes? And we as the reader, we're like, man, I can't believe that they're not accepted. I can't believe that they're treated differently. And how many of those same people then would have been upset if there were black students in their school?
And that's the point. They wanted readers to gain a non-prejudiced perspective, and they did this subliminally.
But mankind was not evil, just uninformed.
So just how did these stories gain so much momentum on the majority of the population?
When my kids were little, we used to have Disney movies every year. Now, you're having at least, it seems, 3 superhero movies every year.
Right now, I mean, Avengers is breaking box office records, like smashing them with Thor's hammer. I mean, the numbers are staggering. It was just over a year ago, Disney bought Marvel for $4 billion. They're gonna make a third of that back with one movie. That's a testament to what people feel about comics. And we've seen that even a few years ago, I want to say like 5 years ago, 6 years ago, Entertainment Weekly had a magazine cover and it said, "Can comics save Hollywood?" Because box office was slumping so bad.
And it's funny because I was talking to one of the producers of this film and handed him Kick-Ass, and he goes, "Was this made before the movie?" And that's really like, that's it. You know, so many people don't even understand that things like I Am Legend or every Viggo Mortensen film that's been shot in the last 3 years, all of these came from comic books first. The Walking Dead TV series, comic book. It's like everything in comics is just being turned into television and being turned into film, and people aren't even aware of the source material. But that's where it is. And frankly, I'm not even going to complain about it.
You know, X-Men and Spider-Man and Batman Begins and Ghost Rider, like all these comic book movies started to hit. And now we see that the biggest thing in Hollywood right now, I mean, the big blockbuster movies this year are going to be Avengers, Dark Knight, and of course Spider-Man is going to be coming out in 3D soon. So we're seeing comics transcend comics. We're seeing comics transcend even entertainment. We're seeing comics transcend all forms of amusement right now.
Is it possible that these stories mean more than just pictures in a book?
Currently, I would say Spider-Man and Green Lantern and Yoda and Optimus Prime, like, those are our modern day mythology. That's our Hermes, that's our Mercury.
It's fair to say that Superman is our Zeus. Superman leads the heroes in the Justice League, and Zeus is the leader of the gods. They're both the most powerful. Flash is our Hermes. They both have winged hats and boots. And Flash also delivered messages in World War II. Aquaman was obviously based off of Poseidon. Green Lantern could be based off of Ares, with his cocky attitude and army to back him up. Batman could represent Hades, Lord of the Underworld, thought to be the weakest, but also the most dangerous. Wonder Woman is seemingly based off the goddess Athena.
Wonder Woman, Mother's Hera, they live on the Amazon island, that's right out of Greek mythology. Thor with Marvel, same thing, that's right out of Norse mythology.
I've believed and I've maintained for years that comic books in one form or another have always existed in mankind. And, you know, mythology is how we as a species tell our stories of morality, whether it's, you know, Zeus and Hermes and Mercury, whether it's like actual mythology or cave paintings. Pictorial storytelling has always been a part of mankind. It's always how we pass our tales of morality, and I've always believed comic books are like the next step in that evolution.
Superheroes are a representation of our culture today, bearing similarities to past cultural beliefs. It is possible that in the future, people will look back at our superhero mythology and get an idea of how we live today.